in 30 days. In today's session, we are going to learn about strings and conditionals. So yesterday we have covered the basics and fundamentals like understanding variables, and today we will continue from there, right? So if you have missed the lecture of yesterday's session, you can find that link to that in the description. I'd go ahead and encourage you to practice along with me. Great. Let me share my screen. Now, if you can see my screen, you'll be able to see that here we have strings as our next topic. Yesterday, we have covered the basics and fundamentals like printing statements, a little more about strings, variables, and what all things they can do with variables and print statements, how to comment, how to multi-line comment, how to work with numbers and basic functions, and what are booleans, right? And today's session, let us understand a little bit more about strings. So anything in Python starts from 0. The index is always 0. It does not start with 1, 2, 3 and all. It starts from 0, 1, 2, 3, right? So whenever you want to access any element of a list, you have to, count from 0 and add 1. For example, now we have the word Python, Python, which has 6 characters in that. So if you see, the 6th character is at index 5, right? So it will always be one number less because it is starting from 0, right? So let us first try to understand that by exercise. Okay, so let me share how to go ahead and start working with your Collab file, right? So now if you see here, I'm going to Collab. If you open Collab, this is where we'll be able to run. You need not have to install any particular IDE or software on your application or device or OS. You can directly go ahead to Collab. It's provided by Google, and you can click here on New Notebook. When you click here on New Notebook, you'll be able to see that it will allocate a file like you create your Google Sheets only, right? So I'm going to name it here. I'm going to say Python strings and conditionals. And now as we proceed forward, first thing we need required to do is click on connect. So when you click on connect, it is going to allocate RAM and disk space for you. So each of these cells are code cells. You're going to run your code here, right? So it is very easy. I'm going to, say, let's say I'm going to say letter. Yesterday we learned about variables. Let's say I'm going to create a variable called letter, and I'm going to give a string name. Let's take the example of Python as a word only. So when I'm going to say Python of 0, you can see that it will take the first character P and save in letter. So I would also go and print the variable letter, right? So if I'm going to run it, you'll be able to see that it printed P. On the 5th character, it will print the last character, which is N, right? So this is how you access by strings, right? So now we have accessed this string. I'm going to say accessing the string. Now I'm going to go ahead and work on the next set of string methods, right? So now this is how we have understood strings. Now I'm going to work with string methods. So like how we use print, which is a default method in Python library, you can use a lot of default string methods. So these are predefined functions, and we'll understand more about that as we go forward. So I'm going to go ahead and show you how this works, right? So we are going to work with an example and learn a little bit more about this, right? Now, let me go ahead and share my screen. Now, if we go ahead here and take this example. This example, what it does is we are defining a string, right? We are calling a string as a word equal to exhibition. Now, in that, what we are going to do, we are going to use the method called length and give this input. So this input is called parameter. So whenever you give an input to a method or a function, it is called parameter, right? So this is what we'll be using as we proceed forward, and more about it while we cover functions. So there's a new variable that's defined, and it will have length of the word. So what is the length of the word will be here, right? So I'm going to print length, right? So let me go ahead and print length. Now I'm going to run this. I can see that the length is 10 characters. So this is a default function. Similarly, there are other methods like lower. Let me go ahead and say lower of word, right? So I'm going to do that. And what I'm going to do here is run, save this in a statement, right? So let me go ahead and do the same here. Great. Yeah. So now what I'm going to do here is run about it. So let me just stop my screen share. Let me show you how this can be done. Yes. Yeah, I hope my screen is visible now. Okay. Okay. And Rahul's string is not visible. Let me go ahead and show you. Right. So now what happens is anything that you put within double quotes becomes a string. Now, if at all you want to convert it into other cases, you can always go ahead and typecast it, right? So what is typecasting? Is converting any particular data type into other data type, right? So let me go ahead and show you that. So now if you see, let me undo code cell. And now here, I am going to run this. If you see, this is a word. For example, I'm going to say pi equal to 3.14. So what happens here is this particular variable is having a string 3.14. Now I want to convert this into an integer, right? So how do you do that? You are going to say my number. I'm just going to give an example, and you're going to say int of y, right? So you can go ahead and convert a string into a number by using int, right? So let me go ahead and try this with, okay, so here basically, if at all, let me try to convert this into float. Yeah, it got converted into float because there was 0.14, right? So let me go ahead and print the pi number. It will be a number. So when it becomes a number, you'll be able to work with arithmetic also, right? So I'm going to say pi number into pi. So if I'm going to do that, you can do arithmetic over there. But if at all I try to run with pi, you'll run into an error because it is not a number. So now what happened here is pi was a string. Now into pi just printed that 5 times, right? So that's not what is intended. So it's very important to convert any string to the other data types, numeric data types, when you're working with arithmetic, right? So similarly, you can convert a number into a string by using the str method, right? So I'm going to say pi string equal to str of pi number. So now what happens here is it's going to make the string, make the number a string. Now the benefit of this is you can always go ahead and do print number is, and you can, because it's a string now, you can do string operation over that. So I'm going to say plus, you can do pi str, right? Because that is a string now, right? So I'm going to run it. You can see that the number is 3.14. So whenever you want to work with numbers, you always have to typecast it by using number methods. Whenever you want to convert it into string, you can do that. But this particular method is not ideal because number information, you have to convert it into a string. Is there a better way to print numbers along with strings? So let's go ahead and understand that. Now, let's understand it in a deeper way. Now, if you will cover more of lower and upper as we go proceed forward, because that would require a little bit understanding of functions. Now, let's understand about string formatting. Now, what happens in string formatting is you can always go ahead and work with them. Like, let me go ahead and show you that. Now, I'm going to use this particular function, this exercise here, and create a cell, show it here. Now, there is the first string, which is red light. There is the second string, which is green light, right? So now what we are going to do is we're going to say stop when it is, instead of writing the variable here, we are using %s and later we are using another percentage symbol here and using the variable name here. So whatever is entered in string 1 and string 2 here are sequentially replaced wherever there is a %s, right? So I am going to run this. Stop when it is a %s, it'll be string 1, which is red light. Go when it is the second %s and there is the second variable, right? So let me go ahead and see if the brackets are matching. If I'm going to print this, you can see that it got printed. Now, this is how you work with multiple variables and print statements. You can always use, you remember to have a modulo here or a percentage symbol here, right? So that's how this will work. You can have a number of variables here, 2, 3, 4, this should not be a problem, right? So now how do you work with numbers in this particular example that we were working? Let's say now pi num is a number. So I'm going to use a similar statement and try to do this here. Right? And I'm going to say number is percentage s. Instead of percentage s, because s is for strings, I'm going to use d, right? So which would mean it is a number. So I'm going to do this, and I'm going to in here use pi num, which is a number, right? So what it will do is it will go ahead and replace. So let me go ahead and comment this. That comment comes handy like this. Now I'm going to print this. Now you can see that the string will be printed, and wherever there is pi num, the number will be getting replaced at percentage t. Let's try doing that and we run into errors. No, so this is working. So when you work with the formatting, you can use this. Okay, so this is how this will work. And there's other way also. As we proceed forward, be more clear with that, right? So I'm going to use the same statement and try to work in a different format. I'm going to say comma and see if this will work, right? So I'm going to comment this now. Let's see if the binum gets printed, right? So this is used traditionally, but you can see if it is working or not. Yes, so it worked, right? This is also a simpler way of using the percentage t. But if you have multiple numbers that you want to print, you would not want to use this. If there's a single one, you can go ahead and you need not have to convert or typecast any of the number into string or other data types, right? So we have covered a little bit about string formatting. Now I'm going to cover a little bit more in detail about conditionals, right? So the whole power of Python comes when you are able to give it a little thinking ability. So that is what we're going to do now, right? So very basic thinking ability. So now what we're going to do an exercise. Okay, and in that exercise, what I'm going to do is say, based upon a condition, take an action, right? So this is what I'm going to tell Python. Now, if you see, I'm going to say actions or conditionals, and let's go ahead and run this. And you can see that there is one variable called toss that is created, and there is a new condition, right? So what we're going to do, I'm going to say if toss. So this is a definition. Now, if you see if toss is equal to, right? So how do you do a check? Whenever you're working with an if statement, here you will have double quotes, which is called a condition check. And I'm going to do heads, right? So what happens here is you have to include a colon here, right? So this is how this particular statement works. I'm going to including this in brackets. So it's not always essential that you put it in brackets, but let me see why this particular error. Okay, so now if toss is heads, you need to do something here. So it is checking if it is heads or not. Then print toss is whatever is there in that particular variable, right? So I'm going to toss here, this is string. Now it should print whatever is there in toss towards the end, right? So toss is heads, and if toss double equal to heads, and print toss is whatever is there in the toss, right? So now because it is toss, it's going to check. So this is a condition check, right? Which uses double equal to definition, which uses single equal, right? So if I'm going to run it, it is saying toss is heads, right? But what happens if it is not heads, right? So what happens if the toss is tails? And if I'm going to run it, now you can see that here it did not do anything, right? Because it checked if toss is heads and said no, right? So remember what we did yesterday? If this is returned as false, it is never going to go to the block of code below it, right? And whenever it is going to be evaluated as true, then it is going to print whatever is below, right? So the toss double equal to heads, the condition check will work. And if it is working, then only you will be able to print or run the block of statements below. So now how do you print something else apart from tails, right? So then that is where you use else if this, then print this else, and then I'm going to use colon, and I'm going to use the same statement here. Print toss is whatever is there in toss, right? So if it is tails, it's going to print this, and I'm going to run it. You can see that it says toss is tails, right? So whenever it is heads, it is going to say toss is heads. Whenever it is heads, again flip, coin flip, and says whenever it is tails, says toss is tails, right? So now what we are going to do here is we are going to write another statement. Say whenever it is heads, print India is batting. And whenever it is not heads, then print Australia is batting, right? This is what is going to be done. Now I'm going to run it. Now, when toss was tails, it ran into the else block and said Australia is batting. And when toss is heads, it's going to do toss is heads, India is batting, right? So this is how you've given a very little thinking ability to your Python program, right? It's based upon toss. It's going to tell you if it is heads or tails. And if it is heads, say India is batting. If it is tails, it's going to say Australia is batting, right? So let us explore this a little bit more. Now, what we are going to do is going to do a small other conditional, which later tomorrow will convert into a function, right? So let us go ahead and do one exercise. And in this exercise, what is going to do, what is that we are going to do is, yeah, so this is how this will go. I'm going to bring up a grade calculator. Yes. So now the condition here is if the score is 90 or higher, the student should get A. And if it is between 65 to 89, the student should get B. Anything below 65 should get a F, right? So similarly, what I'm going to do is here first, let us create the student score, right? So let this score is going to be saved in a variable called score. Now here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this new function called input and say enter your Okay, so I'm going to do that and check if this is going to work, and I'm going to print whatever is there in score, right? So let me go ahead and run this. It's asking me enter the score, and I'm going to say 90. Let me check if it is going to print 90, right? So let me also check what is the data type of the variable score, right? So I'm going to print the data type of score, right? So I'm going to run it. I'm going to say score is 78. And yeah, so it is saying it is string, right? Uh, that when you're working with functions, you do not want it to be string, you want it to be converted into int, right? So for that reason, I'm going to convert this score into an int. The score, whatever is there, I'm going to say int score, right? So what this will do is going to give me the data type converted into score. So whatever is there in score, it will convert it into integer, right? So first I'm going to give an input, and I'm going to say 60. I'm going to run. Now the class is integer, right? So now this is better to work with. I'll also show you how to work with that in an easier fashion. You can convert this into integer here itself, right? So let us take an input from the user score, right? So we have done that. Now what I'm going to do here is give the condition. This is the condition that we have to create, right? So now I'm going to say the if statement, right? If the score is greater than or equal to 90, then colon, and I'm going to say print grade is comma, oh sorry, grade is A, right? So this is what we want to say, right? So you can make it more interesting. Like you can say score is percentage D, and you can say, so grade is A, and you can say percentage here. If you remember how you did that, I'm going to say percentage. Let me go ahead and show you the syntax of this. So you did the print statement, and within the print statement, you did a percentage within, and then gave the variable. So similarly, I'm going to say comma. I'm going to give the name score, right? So if score is greater than equal, then we'll say score is whatever is there in score, right? So it will not work like that. You have to give a percentage symbol, and then within brackets, you have to give the name of your variable, right? So this is the syntax, right? So the syntax is like this: variables within a bracket, a modulo symbol here, or a percentage symbol here, then the string. Same, yes, yes, and yes. Okay, so I hope the number of brackets are also matching. Okay, was not closed. One here, two, one here. Okay, I'm just going to run the syntax once again. It should work. Okay, so let's go ahead and try to run this. Now some error that is coming. Says was not closed. Seems like we have closed it. If it is not working, we have multiple methods to work with it. Let's go ahead and do that. Okay, invalid syntax. Did we work with it properly? Oh, yes. If you remember, here, this is a number and this is a number, and I hope it should work. Okay, so let me just go ahead and try to run it in a different way. I'm going to say score is, say, score. So this is something that should easily work. So this is more of a syntax related thing. So I'm going to clarify more of it as we proceed forward. And you can just say score is whatever is there in score, and then you are going to print grade is A, right? So let's go ahead and run this. Asking me score, and I'm going to say 95. I'm going to enter. Okay, and let's see what is the error. So errors are your friend. Now we see that if score is okay, so yeah, I think now I understand the error also previously. Here, let me convert it. I think when I am running this, I have removed my typecasting, right? So let me go ahead and get back my typecast. Yes, now it should work, right? Now, even our previous statement should work, right? So, which is score is percentage D, and I'm going to say grade is A, right? I'm going to say modulo here, then I'm going to give a bracket here, see if this works, right? I'm going to run this, and I'm going to enter 94. Hopefully, yes, score is 94, grade is 8, right? Now you have asked, the Python program has asked what is the score, and now when you enter the score based upon the score, it is giving you the grade, right? So you've given a little thinking ability, but to now to have a space here, I'm going to say give space here to have space, and then what I'm going to do here is give an else statement, right? So here, let me go ahead and say else if it is not greater than or equal to 19, let's say print whatever the score is and the grade is F, right? I'm going to run it. So if it is not 90, it is going to print grade as this. So I'm going to say an 81 if it is, which is not greater than 90, and I'm going to run it, and I'm going to click enter. The score is 81, but the grade is F, right? So now this is easy because we've learned if and else. But now how do we do another check if it is between 65 and 89, right? So that is how we do that. So that is we get this statement, which is I'm going to do here is I'm going to say score if score is greater than or equal to 65, and I'm going to say operator, and it's an operator which is useful within conditions also. Now I'm going to say score is less than or equal to 89, right? Now if you do that and give a colon here and then say print score is whatever is there in score and the grade is B. Now I'm going to run it. Now it is asking me to enter the score. I'm entering it 92. It's giving me grade as A, that's fine. To run it again, I'm going to enter the score as 69. I'm going to run it. Going to grade as B, and I'm going to say 45. and it just gave me a grade as F, right? So I hope you found this interesting to work with, right? So now we've included all of our learnings till now into this one small program. Tomorrow we are going to convert it to a function and see how it is going to be more helpful, right? So I'd request you to do a little bit more practice by yourself. Use Collab or okay. Correcting. Thank you so much, Rahul, for correcting. Right now, you can go ahead and work by yourself also on the things that we have learned. In our upcoming sessions, we are going to learn a little bit more about functions, right? So I request you to, do keep doing practice, and we'll see each other tomorrow. Thank you so much. Yes. Yes, Sushi. Correct. So you can use either this particular way to enter, or you can use the other syntax that we have shown, which is this way, right? So if at all you do not want to print score, you can directly go ahead and print grade is A, because the program requires to print grade, right? So score is something that we have done optionally. Thank you so much, Sushil. Yes, that is amazing. So if you're watching us on our social channels, I would request you to go ahead and put up your top 3 learnings in the comment section. And if you like this session, go ahead and give a thumbs up to the session. Thank you so much.